March 11, 2019 work session of the Williamsburg City Council will come to order. Ms. Burcham, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Maslin.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Mayor Freiling. Vice Mayor Pons.
Here.
And Mr. Zhang.
Here.
Next on our agenda are items for City Council meeting of March 14, 2019. Mr. Trivett, anything you'd like to highlight?
No, actually, we have a fairly short agenda for the 14th.
It never stops us from using a lot of time to accomplish it.
That's right. That's right. Maybe I should have filled it up with other things. But at any rate, we'll be talking about the fire station location analysis, so the second review of that, as well as another amendment to the tour guide licensing section of City Code.
At this time, we welcome any comments from anybody in the audience about items related to our Thursday meeting. If anybody would like to address any of those issues, please come forward. I will also open it up for anybody who'd like to address anything in general. We'll have another open forum at the end of this meeting. I do have one speaker's card. Would you like to speak now? No, we'll wait. Okay. We'll move on to the background presentations and discussion. The first of which is a presentation of the CARE Team 3-year pilot summary with current and future partnership plans. Peter Walentisch, Human Services Director, and Wendy Evans, Deputy Director of Social Work and Community Services. Mr. Walentisch?
I'm going to defer to my esteemed colleague, Wendy Evans.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Evans.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor Freiling and members of council. I'm actually going to do a quick introduction and then turn it over to someone else. The Child Health Initiative began in 2014 with the support of the Williamsburg Health Foundation. The partnership was formed between the Williamsburg James City County Schools, Child Development Resources, and the Human Services Department to address the health needs of children and families in the city. The partners developed a care team model and services began to families in 2015. The city hired 3 staff members, a social worker, a mental health case manager, and a nurse, registered nurse, to work alongside families. The foundation has continued to support the program as we are now in the 4th year. So today, Gwen Kitson, our coordinator, social worker, will share with you some of the impacts we've seen over the last couple of years. But first, I wanted to introduce to you the rest of the team. We have Candace Brown, who is the case manager here, and also Mary Slade, who's the registered nurse. So, all right, now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kitson to share with you the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Kitson.
Thank you. Peter told me to talk in the mic. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start today by telling you a little bit about one of our care team families, giving you just a snapshot, really. The family consists of a mother, father, and their children. They self-referred to the care team program after hearing about it from a friend. Although this family had many strengths, there were significant needs as well. Concerns included child and adult mental and medical health problems, employment, isolation, and early childhood issues. Like most of our families, they seemed overwhelmed with their challenges and were eager to engage in services with the care team. Sorry, but I thought I was going to have a PowerPoint presentation. Is that what this is?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about that. All right. So the case manager and the care team nurse work with them to identify health and family goals and create a service plan. The care team assisted by making referrals and ensuring the family received appropriate early childhood services, mental health assessment, and in-home counseling, as well as individual and family counseling. Also, one parent was assisted through the process needed to secure employment. One notable accomplishment for this family was the mother earning her driver's license with the support and encouragement of the care team. This increased her independence and improved her connection to her community. The family also participated fully in the health promotion activities, and we are very happy to report to you that this family completed all of their goals and successfully graduated from the care team program. The care team model was conceived and developed as an innovation to address concerns about child health and well-being in the city of Williamsburg. The team recognized that traditional family support approaches may miss opportunities to identify child health needs and to help families to support child health as part of an overall family plan. Additionally, more traditional programs identify one person as the client, which means that families who need multiple supports must see many service providers. However well-meaning, the array of services and service contacts can become overwhelming and unproductive for any family. The care team model is expressly designed to create a family-centered support hub that streamlines communication and coordinates services. As you can see, we work with all family members living in the home. This two-generation approach focuses equally and intentionally on services and opportunities for both the children and the adults in the family. The Care Team program provides an intensive level of services with staff members averaging 12 to 15 contacts with the family each month. The primary responsibilities of the case manager includes efforts to assist families to gain access to necessary social, vocational, educational, and other needed services. For example, during the 3-year pilot, Care Team case managers assisted 12 families to make the move from homelessness to permanent housing. Additionally, we assisted 5 individuals from completing a certification or a training program so that they could pursue a career instead of just going after a minimum wage job. The Care Team nurse plays multiple roles. A primary role is to assist families with health navigation so that they understand how and where to get the medical services they need. Providing services in the family's home allows opportunities for reinforcement and medical follow-up not available in most programs. Not surprising, many of our participants had received little or no dental care. During the 3-year pilot, 74% of all child and adult dental goals were completed. And this is from a population that had very little dental work done. Another example of the importance of the nurse role is when a pharmacy made a serious error when filling prescriptions for sisters. Our Care Team nurse's previous accompaniment to doctor's appointments and her training helped her to identify this potentially dangerous error. So additionally, our Care Team nurse coordinates health promotion activities that work to provide the knowledge and skills to help families implement healthier choices. One component of health promotion includes health lessons presented by our nurse to children and adults in their home. There is a menu of lessons for the families to choose from. This slide here shows pictures from our kids' camps for elementary school children. Camps are scheduled during regular breaks in the school calendar and are interactive with children having fun learning about such things as nutrition, stress management, feelings, and safety. The Care Team staff coordinated with the Williamsburg Fire and Police Departments to provide basic first aid, fire safety training, and personal safety to our campers. An ongoing partnership with the Williamsburg-James City County Public Schools SHIP program provides opportunities for families to learn about healthier eating. These events include hands-on cooking lessons by a chef and incentives for families. During the 3-year pilot, the Care Team nurse and case manager provided hundreds of family supports to 221 of our city residents. Here we show an example of the types of goals made by families and the success rate during the first 3 years of operation. Overall, families completed 79% of their goals and 91% of child health goals. Family and stakeholder surveys conducted during the evaluation process provided feedback that was overwhelmingly positive. Survey results illustrate improved health literacy, and the qualitative feedback from families indicates that they are applying their health education and making lifestyle adjustments. 78% of survey respondents strongly agree that the Care Team has helped them to feel more confident about their ability to accomplish goals. During the 3-year pilot, we learned that family engagement is essential. The Care Team model is a family-centered, strengths-based approach to partnering with families in making decisions, setting goals, and achieving desired outcomes. It is founded on the principle of respect, communicating openly and honestly with families in a way that supports disclosure of preferences, family dynamics, culture, and individual experiences. We've also learned that each care team family has unique needs. There is no one-size-fits-all with this program. Third, we have learned that the goal attainment on average can take 1 year. During this time, needs and priorities can change, making ongoing assessment a critical component to successful goal attainment. And lastly, families often take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Many of our participants are struggling with mental health issues or caught in a cycle of generational poverty. They are focused on the challenges facing them today. Change is best seen as a process and should never be viewed as a one-time accomplishment. We believe that the Care Team program has demonstrated that when you take the time and interest to walk with families, real change can occur. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll come back to council, see if there are any questions, comments.
Well, so thank you for your presentation. You know, I remember when this first came to council and the opportunity that was afforded us by the Williamsburg Health Foundation, you know, and it was very generous. And we realized then that this was a pilot program, but I think uniformly we all agreed that any time that we can get in and help children and families, you know, through whatever the issues that they have, is a benefit to the community for lots of reasons, not just to the family, but for all of us. And so I've heard you say many times that this was a pilot program, and so I take it that this is going to end unless there's some funding from some other source.
Right. Currently, so we've moved out of the official pilot. The Health Foundation did fund us for a 4th year, and actually this year, again, we were invited to apply for full funding. Eventually, I am going to make the assumption that they will stop funding it, although they have now, James City County has also started a care team program there that the Foundation is funding as well. So we are now supporting James City County in their efforts to get their program up and running.
Good. Now, and do you think there's an opportunity in this type of program with James City County to have some sort of partnership with the city, or?
I believe so. I mean, I think currently one of the things that's happening right now is we need a software program to accommodate our needs, both Williamsburg and James City County. So the 2 entities are working together to identify an appropriate software and then to purchase that together. So I believe that is one way that we're partnering, and we'll continue to work together. Some of the health promotion activities that I talked about, there's certainly places there for a joint or regional effort there, I believe.
Well, so keep up the good work, and look forward to hearing more positive results as time goes by.
Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the entire team to come. And I know under Pete Walentisch, it's never a dull day in the office, isn't it, in the department. I mostly echo what the Vice Mayor has said. I think that in light of recent local news highlighting the 400 homeless students that live in this region, it's gratifying to see that we have innovative approaches from the local government standpoints in conjunction with our nonprofits and agencies to be able to work on an individualized basis with these families and with these children. So I commend you and your staff and your team for that. It's with limited budget, you know, with limited resources, you know, we would think we want to help every single person, right? And I think one of the things that's great about this program is just how individualized it is in terms of its approach, in terms of its care. We've seen some agencies and some programs across the United States that kind of just throw money at a program and just expect folks to have it work, but this is very proactive, and I think there's a lot of disparities that I think the team is able to really address through this individualized basis. So it's to be commended. I think in terms of logistics and future policies set forth by this body, we'll have to discuss that further, but so far it seems to be yielding positive outcomes, and just again, very appreciative. So far, so good. Thank you very much.
And I would just like to, again, echo thank you and for coming, and I think the report and the presentation you've given does provide validation not only to the community, but also to the Health Foundation that this is a really worthwhile program. And I think it's also sort of proof is in the pudding as it's grown with the inclusion of Old Town Medical and Dental Center and the schools and now James City County. So holistic approach does work in so many ways as shown here. So thank you.
Thank you. No questions.
I just echo my colleagues' words of thanks and also just make a couple of notes. The example that you offered of that specific family was very helpful as an illustration to how the care team can have a real impact. The concept of one point of contact for healthcare or for services for an entire family as opposed to one per patient is really compelling, because to think about a family having the bandwidth to deal with 4 different points of contact, one for each member of their family, it's almost overwhelming. And I could see why efforts would fall by the wayside when that's necessary. So that having that one family contact is tremendous. Are there similar models to this elsewhere, other than what you're beginning in James City County?
I don't know that I have any specific program. One of the, there is an approach called a 2-generation approach. That is that we're getting a lot of information out of DC. The Aspen Institute is doing a lot of 2-gen work. So we are using some of the 2-generation model stuff, but I also believe that this was a program idea that Peter had for a long time.
Well, Mayor, just to back up what you said, to give you a visual, I think that's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. When life happens, and we all can relate to that, usually the starting point is the sky is falling, and there's almost complete emotional paralysis on not only the head of household, but everybody else in there. Usually there's dysfunction and everything else going on. You can't set goals and you can't plan. You have a purely reactive situation. And when I say emotional paralysis is you're not going in, nothing's happening, it's just getting worse. What this does is allow the family, the head of household, and to sort out what the priorities are so that the sky isn't falling, get it in some kind of order and some kind of time. It's goal setting, short-term, mid-range, and long-term goal setting, which they haven't been able to do. And to your point, Mayor, in my career, I've seen so many households that might be sitting there on the kitchen table, 6 business cards, or 6 to 8 places for them to go. In other states, it's actually worse than Virginia, believe it or not, because each state agency separates it out. Virginia does a much better job in that. So it's completely overwhelming if you're surviving, barely surviving, to go to 6 different offices to try to get disconnected services that are siloed. It's overwhelming. I mean, it would do any one of us in. Your point's very well taken. Our model is unique, even though there's variations of the theme in the country. We saw the needs and we said, here's what we are telling the foundation will work. And the foundation has pretty much backed us up on the success of the pilot. They've asked us to continue. They'd love to see this implemented regionally. So I see this as a long-term process with the foundation as we further integrate this model into the rest of our operations within the department. That's the plan.
6 different business cards for 6 different agencies, none of which can schedule you within the next 2 months, and they only have 1 appointment available, which does not work for the family's schedule.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
totally
basically hold that emergency because we could give you an appointment 2 months down the road, or 3, in some cases 4, to your point.
Well, and one of the things that Peter talked about, the sky is falling now, and people being focused on the challenges of today, and I mentioned that as well. And so when you're so focused on surviving and the challenges right in front of you today, it's very difficult to look forward to tomorrow. So these folks that are getting doctor's appointments scheduled 2 months down the road or 3 months, it's probably not going to happen.
And you also mentioned in your example that this family's self-referred, and there are other methods by which families can be referred to the program. Do you find the self-referrals have any greater commitment to the eventual positive outcomes than those referred by third parties, or is it all across the board?
No, I wouldn't say that. One of the positives for us with the self-referral, though, is it means that good things are being said out in the community about the program. So this particular family had heard about it from somebody else, and somebody else was doing our marketing very well for us.
Well, again, thank you very much to all of you for your work here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
This takes us to our next background presentation and discussion. Presentation concerning the next steps and implementation of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Robbi Hutton, Parks and Recreation Director. Welcome, Ms. Hutton.
Good afternoon. So today I'd like to share with you our next steps for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. But first I'd like to remind everybody of the purpose. So the purpose was to create a roadmap for the Parks and Recreation Department, something that we could use as a resource for future development and redevelopment for our parks and recreation facilities, as well as use as a resource to enhance sports tourism. So since our last presentation in November, there has not been any further citizen comment. So that brings us to the final phase of our master planning process. So with this, we are ready to prepare our action plan for implementation. So for our action plan, we're reviewing and analyzing the information of the plan. We are prioritizing the recommendations, and we're also assigning a priority timeline. So our timeline, we are doing short term, which is up to 3 years, midterm, which is 4 to 6 years, long term, which is 7 to 10 years, and then a category of ongoing. From there, we begin our cost analysis, where we will identify and coordinate with the appropriate funding source. And then from there, we will begin our implementation. So the plan had 4 overarching goals. The first one was to add new and improve existing infrastructure and amenities. And recommendations were to maintain and improve our existing facilities, to add and improve bike paths on our walking trails, look at developing additional indoor and outdoor recreation facilities, consider adding splash pads, and explore opportunities for sports tourism. The second goal was to continue to improve programs and service delivery, and we are going to continue to do that through monitoring our participation and affordability of our programs, look at enhancing our special event programming, explore opportunities for fitness and wellness, and monitor our current staffing levels. The third goal is to continue to improve organizational efficiencies, and we're going to do that through our marketing and branding, improve communication, reviewing our joint use agreements and memos of understanding. We're going to look at seeking out additional partnerships and implement recreation management software. And the final goal is to increase financial opportunities, and we're going to look to increase our sponsorships, pursue grant opportunities, pursue capital funding, and explore dedicated funding source for our park maintenance. So we've identified some top priorities. The first is ADA deficiencies, and that's within our parks, specifically accessible walkways and our playground structures. Deferred maintenance was also identified, and that speaks to asset deterioration, so we're going to look at improving that. Also, the expansion of the Quarter Path Recreation Center, and that's twofold. That is to help with our growing programming and also to provide additional space for sports tourism. And then again, look at adequate staffing. The plan recommended adding 1.5 positions, but ideally we want to make sure that we are adequately staffed now and moving forward. On the right-hand side, we have reoccurring survey themes, which was multi-purpose indoor athletic facility, connectivity, and that spoke to both bike paths and walking trails. There was a lot of interest to reopen the mountain bike trail at Walentisch Park, And the pickleballers want more pickleball courts, both indoor and out, and the lawn bowlers want a dedicated bowling green. So the question that everyone's been asking is, when are we going to see the components of the master plan implemented? Where are we going to see implementation? And how much is it going to cost? So here's some things that we've been working on. So for ADA deficiencies, it's going to be a 3-year phase-in project, roughly about $400,000. For deferred maintenance, again, it's going to be a phase-in project over 3 years, and we're guesstimating about $375,000. And then for the quarter path feasibility study, we're looking to do that in FY20 for $50,000, and then adding outdoor pickleball courts in FY20 for $20,000. Be happy to answer any questions, and then I also listed our website if anybody is interested in reading our draft plan.
Well, no real quick, thank you, Robbi, for coming in and giving us a presentation. It's come a long way since December 2017.
Right.
Lots of, studies and data collections and communications with lots of, focus groups and all sorts of stuff. So I appreciate that we finally gotten to a point where there's an action plan. And so obviously I think all of these things are top priorities, and I like how you've looked at uses from a residential perspective, then also from an economic impact perspective, or how can we generate some additional revenue here. So I think you're heading down the right path, and so I applaud your efforts and look forward to supporting you.
Thank you, Robbi, for coming in and presenting the presentation. Like the Vice Mayor said, I'm glad to see an action plan moving forward, particularly your priorities on addressing ADA deficiencies and deferred maintenance. I think that's incredibly important, and I'm glad that that's on the top of the priorities, among other things. Appreciate that you mentioned about sports tourism and also enhancing special event programming opportunities. I'm just curious, in terms of the programming, are you also looking to expand? I saw you said enhance programming, but does that include expanding more new programs or just kind of enhancing the current ones that we have? Because I know y'all have a lot of...
We're looking to do both.
Okay.
Right now we have limited programming space, but we are always looking to improve what we're doing. And then we're also, we try to be mindful of trends within the Parks and Recreation field as well as the challenges. So we always look to find that niche.
And in terms of the quarter path feasibility study, the $50,000, is that for RFP for a consultant later on, or?
Right. So that is for a consultant to determine how we can expand and what we need to expand to.
Not that this is, we have to answer this now, but has your staff or you thought about using the same consultant again, just to keep it consistent, or is it just entirely two different things?
It's entirely two different things.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Zhang, one thing I would point out is that when we talk about the quarter path expansion and the needs to do an analysis there, what we're really talking about is identifying what types of sports we need to plan for in an expansion,
Gotcha.
which obviously determines how the building gets constructed, right?
Sure.
Secondly, the City Council has another GIO, which the quarter path expansion study is a GIO, but then there's one right below it that talks about the need for regional sports tourism, and you heard Ms. Hutton mention that when she talked about this item. It very well could be that those two projects become combined, or at least so intertwined that it's difficult to separate them out.
Sure.
And if that occurs, it may be that the $50,000 we have programmed to do the study for just the Quarter Path Rec Center isn't spent and can be dedicated to some other project in the CIP.
And obviously that'll be a conversation for council to have much later on.
Absolutely.
Right? Or soon. Who knows?
I was just going to thank you also for the presentation, and you mentioned trends, and I know that pickleball has been a trend, particularly in a certain age category over the past few years. Not mine, but.
Paul must be playing a lot.
And also that you all have done extremely well as far as attracting groups to Williamsburg for pickleball tournaments.
Yes, ma'am.
In your own sports tourism. So where will the outdoor pickleball courts be constructed?
So we are looking at a tennis court conversion at Kiwanis Park. We are looking at converting 3 of our tennis courts there into pickleball courts. So we can end up with essentially 12 tennis courts per 3 of our tennis courts.
And not knowing how pickleball participants travel, would this also be something where tournaments would come for outdoor play, or is?
We could absolutely hold a tournament, a large tournament with 12 courts.
Okay, great. And then as far as the other goals and recommendations that were included in the action plan, will you do a prioritization of them? Like,
Yes, ma'am.
look at them every 6 months, every fiscal year, or?
So we are going to concentrate on those top priorities, and then as a staff, we are sitting down and we are looking at the plan long-term. We are mindful that we will not be able to or want to or need to implement everything that was recommended within the plan, but we want to make sure that we're doing what's best for the community.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. What partnerships do we currently have or potentially could have with the school system and the library system?
So we do have a partnership with the school system as far as use, and we have a partnership with James City County with their Parks and Rec department as well. We don't really have necessarily a dynamic relationship with the library. They've been very responsive to our needs when we've contacted them.
But do you see any opportunity for, joint programs?
There are some, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hutton. We appreciate you being here. Just a couple of more questions.
Sure.
Under the category of deferred maintenance, are there any particular priorities within that, or anything that sticks out as something we would absolutely want to do first?
So there's just mainly like a lot with like improving our amenities, like inoperable water fountains, some picnic tables, things like that. There's nothing that's, alarming.
And anything that was a safety issue, obviously.
Everything that's a safety issue has either been addressed or is at the top of the order to be repaired or fixed.
And one of the recurring survey themes that's not addressed in the implementation is the lawn bowling.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what the challenges might be there? Is it site location, construction, maintenance, operation?
So lawn bowling falls under one of our GIOs, so we're working on it, and one of the biggest challenges is location and the expense of building and maintaining. And the lawn bowling group is small in comparison to some of the other groups that we could help, like say with like pickleball. So it's on our radar. It is one of our GIOs, and staff is currently trying to identify locations that we could have a lawn bowling green.
And last is not really a question, just an observation. It's interesting that these two presentations come back to back, because I don't think people should miss the tie between good public access to recreation programs and positive health outcomes for individuals and families within this community. And not everybody has the resources to join a private club, to go to a health, whether it's a health facility or a bigger operation. And so these public amenities play a really important role in not only providing opportunities for people to get exercise and be active within the community, but also educating them about the value of that. So thank you for your role there too.
I will say that one of the growing trends in Parks and Recreation is outdoor fitness equipment, and we were able to stay ahead of the curve on that one, and it was a recommendation from the master plan, but we've already implemented it, which is our outdoor exercise equipment at Kiwanis Park. So it is a means for families to utilize that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This takes us to our third presentation concerning the current activities at the Williamsburg Regional Library and review of the fiscal year 20 requested funding as part of the FY20 Williamsburg Regional Library budget. And today we have Betsy Fowler, Director of the Library. Welcome, Ms. Fowler.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. We have 6 library board members in the audience as well. So, thank you for the opportunity to come talk about the library. I'm very excited about a lot that's happening there. So this was a great opportunity to put some of that before you. Let's see, I'm not sure which button to push.
Trial and error.
There, good, right hand. So this is starting out with a photo of the Williamsburg Library on a typical morning last summer. We have opened up part of the children's library into a playscape area with learning activities and toys where families can come and be with their children, and we see demographics from across the city and the region playing together and meeting. It's a wonderful active space, and this is kind of a picture that encapsulates what's happening at the library in general, that people are still coming to read and to study and to think and to learn, but they also come to engage in learning activities. Many generations come to the library together, and we see more and more demand for programs and space for people to come and meet. So we have some exciting library trends I wanted to highlight. The first one being adult reading. Last summer, we had our first adult summer reading club, and we had a surprising 831 people register, and they shared book reviews. We published several of them on our Facebook page. They were very engaged and very excited, and so much so that we did a winter one, and we had almost 500 people just complete our winter reading program for adults. We also started up 6 different adult reading clubs that are library sponsored, and we are also facilitating hundreds of area book clubs with our gab bags, which give reading clubs multiple copies of popular books for their book clubs. So we see there's really people enjoy not just reading individually, but coming together and sharing what they've read and having a shared experience. So we really love that idea of building an entire community of readers that are interacting together. Another big trend that's ongoing is the Summer Reading Club. This is a really big institution with this library. This library is famous for its Summer Reading Club. This is underwritten as much of this by our Library Foundation, which last year gave $160,000 towards library programs and some collections, and raised over another $200,000 to put towards library projects. So they are a key player in all of this. The summer reading program is really a summer reading extravaganza. We have over 3,000 children sign up, almost 700 teens, and we have lots of events all summer. So it is action-packed across the system. And it really is an opportunity. We have as part of that, the foundation allows us to have a little bookstore that we open up, and each child can choose their own book, a new free book, and browse a little bookstore and have that experience. And we take that on the road with the outreach vehicles as well. And it offers each child an opportunity to come and tell the librarian one by one what book they're reading and what was in the book. So they really have to bring a certain amount of gravitas to their reading and be able to share it. And they take it very seriously. We are also a really great place to come for concerts, for films, for plays, for all sorts of events that are happening at the library every week. We have 4 different film series, and I don't know whether you all have seen it yet, but for the first time we have a program guide with all of our events in it quarterly that we just put on. I think each one was mailed to everyone, but you may not have gotten it yet. But we're really excited to have that, and several patrons have already told me they've gone through and highlighted all the programs they're going to go to. So we're really hoping that that will make it very available to people so they know what's going on all the time. Another big trend we're seeing is these interactive learning spaces. We've done 10 signature event STEAM Saturdays since half ago. We average around 400 to 500 program attendees at each one. Each one has a theme. It's robotics. We have NASA come. We have the Virginia Living Museum come, we have the Virginia Science Museum come, and they do interactive things with the wider group, and then we have individual family activities that are part of that afterwards, and we have all generations coming, and they love it. This has been so exciting for people that has inspired us to develop a plan for our children's spaces, and the first one we're doing is at James City County. It's called the Idea Studio, and the foundation is helping to fund that, but it's going to have interactive science stations, a larger playscape village, window nooks, and eventually, hopefully, an outdoor play space where creative play can be in a natural landscape playground. So we're really excited about how people love coming to the library, not just to read and learn, but to do things and learn as well. And we're seeing this with the adult programs. We have a getaway cafe for people with early memory loss to come and get together and have a social experience and a special event. Centuries of Art, talks at 2, lots of special lectures. And this year we also have been experimenting with maker spaces with a year of making activities, and we're getting ready to do textiles next here at the Stryker Center on Sundays. It's every Sunday afternoon. But we've also done robotics, computers, and we've had themes. And what we've seen again is that grandparents and parents and children all coming together and doing these activities together. And this is the program guide I mentioned earlier, which just hit the library last week from the press. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the library spaces. I mentioned the Idea Studio. This is the entrance to James City County. We did a little remodel a year ago and opened up a vending cafe space and a little computer bar, and really made the collections more attractive and accessible, so you have kind of a bookstore experience and you can go in and browse the new books. And we're hoping to be able to duplicate this experience here in the Williamsburg Library soon, right as you come in the door, because people really enjoy being able to browse and understand and see what the new books are and the multimedia collections. And of course, the collections are still the backbone of the library. We still are maintaining the same size book collections. They're still going out at the same level. Where the real growth is, though, is in downloadable ebooks, audiobooks, downloadable magazines, streaming movies, and we are building those collections, and the use has been climbing. I think it was 30% over the last quarter. And again, the foundation is helping us be able to buy multiple copies of these so we can serve users more quickly, so we can buy more copies so people don't have as long a wait. So we really are working hard to meet the demand of a voracious reading public here in Williamsburg. And I want to talk for a moment about our big survey we did last summer that was connected to where a possible site could be for a joint library if there was going to be one with James City County. And we had 3,130 respondents. And as part of that survey, we used it as an opportunity to find out more about our users and how they use the library. And it was a great opportunity to ask some economic impact questions. And we really got a big response. So one of the things we found out, to start with, this is separate from the survey, we have 375,000 estimated visitors to the Williamsburg Library and to library events at the Stryker Center this coming fiscal year, where we average over 1,000 people a day. And that's just at this site. When we did this survey, we had respondents that were 621 respondents from Williamsburg, 2,160 from James City, and 313 from York. And this is some of what they told us. We asked them, when you visit the Williamsburg Library, do you typically combine this visit with other activities? And we learned that 64% go shopping in Merchant Square and visit Colonial Williamsburg during the same trip they make to the library. So this was really interesting because it's kind of the chicken and the egg. You don't know which is coming first. Would they come regardless of the library and they're stopping at the library, or are they coming because of the library and then they're going? Either way, I think it demonstrates that the library is one of the big anchors of the downtown. It's helping to draw people to downtown. We see the next one, attending downtown events such as the farmers market, concerts, and festivals. 52% of the people visiting the library said they typically do this when they visit the library. 46% are visiting. A lot of people go to the post office and then the library. We learned that. That's a very big twosome. A lot of people are using the municipal buildings and the Stryker Center, shopping in the city outside of the colonial area, eating in a restaurant. So for years I had heard that library visits are typically combined with other errands, and we really saw that play out in this survey, that people don't just come to the library, they plan their activities for the day or the afternoon. They plan to go to the post office, come to the library, eat lunch out, go shopping. Many of the lucky ones go home and take a nap, they told us, so they have their whole day planned around an outing. And this is a diagram showing the heavier lines are the most frequent things that people do. So the library showing that people are coming from William and Mary, from the post office, from the Triangle. A lot of people are going to Prince George Street, and then over to Merchant Square is where most of the people are traveling from the library. And we had also asked the question, what did you do your last visit to the library? Where did you go before you came to the library, and where did you go after you came to the library? And we had over 4,000 responses. So we were really able to get a very clear idea of how people combine their library use with other trips. And this takes us to our budget. This year, our budget was primarily driven by James City County did a salary market survey last year, and they adjusted salaries to be at the bottom end of the current market for the region, which was great for us. Our librarian one salaries went up and several other positions. The compensation package numbers came in after we had already presented our budgets in Williamsburg and Yorktown, so we funded the first phase one from our fund balance. This year, that phase one is rolled into our proposed budget, as well as the final phase two of that. So that's really the driver for the budget this year. We didn't ask for any additional hours or positions. We upped $10,000 for the collections for digital books. Operationally, we asked for increased money because of licensing costs. We're trying to get our public and staff computers on a 5-year replacement cycle, so the funds for that are in there. But pretty much it's driven by that salary survey. And you may not know, but James City County is our human resources department. The city is our finance partner, and the county is our HR department. So all of our salaries, all of our HR needs run through the county, so we are part of their overall funding scale. And then here is a look at all of the jurisdictions, what the adopted budget was in each one last year, what the proposed budget numbers are this year. You can see the city of Williamsburg is 3.72. James City County, which is the majority of the budget because they are the majority of the use of the regional system, had a 6.82, carrying the weight of that market salary survey implementation. And then we had generated funds from concerts and other events of $171,000, and the total budget for the library is almost $7 million. And we still get state aid, which goes almost entirely to our collection development budget. So it's funding a lot of the collection development budget every year. And we're always impressed and appreciative by the city support, the county support, and we look forward to honoring that going forward. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Come back to my colleagues for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. I appreciate you coming in, and I look forward to the library staying in the community and continuing to be a real contribution to the fabric of what we are here in Williamsburg and James City County. I'm always amazed when I go over there how many people are there taking advantages of the services. And some may say, well, gosh, with everything online, you can read online. Why do you need a library anymore? And so I would encourage them to come in and see what goes on at the library, and watch this presentation, just to hear all the activities that are going on. I think it's just a real positive atmosphere, to bring families together or kids together in a way that, broadens their mind, sharpens their mind, I think is a powerful impact. And so for that and so many other reasons, I think we should continue our support of the library. I'm glad James City County went through the process of looking at compensation. I know we've done that here in the city, and it's costing us all more money. It's very easy to fall behind on compensation. So, and I know that sometimes some employees may think we're still behind, but we're all working to get there. So I don't really have any questions, but look forward to support.
Thank you.
I don't really have any questions. And first of all, thank you for presenting and coming in today, and for the trustee members and the library board members who are here to support. I don't have any questions, but in terms, I have, if you don't mind sharing an observation, I'm always incredibly impressed by just the sheer amount of enthusiasm and commitment by the members of the library board, and also the foundation as well. I think that energy, plus some of the survey results you have shown in this presentation slide, really is a compelling case that the library is a unique and perhaps the core asset to our downtown vibrancy. And now we're in the midst of talking about and discussing all these different ideas for downtown vibrancy. It's great that there's so much potential, I think is the right word to say, when we're talking about downtown's future, and also we're going to have the Main Street presentation come up next, and then also with the library renovations, expansions, or the possibility of a joint library venture. So it's incredibly, I think we're incredibly blessed to have that kind of resource. I can just recall, just growing up, I always utilized the library and used the audio cassettes to learn how to read as a part of, to supplement what I was already learning at the public schools. But also, in terms of my other involvement on Literacy for Life, I mean, in this community, we have just so many great programs. And one of that, with Literacy for Life, you have folks who may have struggles with adult illiteracy, and to be able to benefit from a program there, to be able to cultivate some literacy skills, and then be able to go to a safe space, I would imagine so, in the Williamsburg Regional Library, just to be able to go there and be able to share space with folks who have advanced reading skills, intermediate reading skills, low reading skills, to be able to cultivate that knowledge base as well. So I think that's also an incredibly gratifying observation to have about our library system as opposed to anywhere else in the United States. So I appreciate all that you do. Thank you for presenting the budget numbers, and I'm sure the city manager is diligently constructing our budget as we speak, and we look forward to future discussions with
Thank
regard
you
to
so
that.
much.
Absolutely.
And I have to put a plug in for the remarkable library staff here too, which
Absolutely.
have a great passion for service and a lot of talent.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Betsy, and I don't have any questions either. I will just say that I was pleased that you included library trends in the presentation, because I think it's very helpful to be staying ahead of what's happening, not only in libraries, but in the ways that people interact and learn, and also for the fact that the library is reaching out to the community to have available all different ways that people can utilize the library. So I think that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the best kept secrets is being a library member, we have access to the College of William and Mary libraries.
That's true.
And certainly, if you're going to drive there on the weekend, is when you can find the free parking there. Can you talk about that partnership and what that offers, our residents?
We're really excited. Carrie Cooper, who is the Dean of Libraries for William and Mary, has been a wonderful collaboration partner, and we're exploring several different ways to collaborate with the college. And the first one we were able to do together is open up the libraries to anyone who is a resident of James City County, York County, or the city of Williamsburg is now eligible for a William and Mary library card, and anybody who works at the college is eligible for a Williamsburg Regional Library card, or vice versa, was a SWIM library card, sorry. So it really gives the ability, because they're very different collections. It's an academic collection. We're a popular reading materials collection, but we have a lot of serious readers in this community. So it allows people who want to do in-depth research and reading and genealogy and family history to be able to avail themselves of a world-class collection at William & Mary. So it's a great asset for our community.
Also, being able to utilize your auditorium, because you've got more capacity than they do, so you just see more programs coming from the college.
We had a joint program last year with a best-selling children's author, Kwame Alexander, who came and did a program that the college funded most of. We're looking going forward at doing some other collaborative, maybe a One Community Read program where we have an author come and sharing the expenses of that. We're looking at joint training and being able to utilize having one training session with both of our staffs attending and looking for other ways we can collaborate together. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for the tours that you offered us.
Yes, thank you.
Earlier, I guess, I don't know, earlier this year, maybe it was the end of last year. And we've all been to the library, probably everybody in this room's been there 100 times. But you showed us some of the parts that aren't readily evident to folks who visit just as a patron of the library. And it was helpful in highlighting some of the needs that your staff have and the ways that improving that could really help benefit the broader community. So we appreciate that. Going back to what Mr. Zhang was saying, my library experience as a child was a little bit before his, and it was vastly different from today's. I think back then and today, the core focus is still on developing literacy skills. It's just that you have at your disposal some different techniques than were available in my youth. When you combine that with the library's role now as a convener within the community, as a place for people to gather for a wide variety of events that can add to the overall culture and quality of life, it is just such a richer experience today. Oh, we loved going to the library it was a family outing when I was a child. You know, Mom and Dad would get everybody in the car and we'd drive on down and spend hours in there just looking through books. But now the opportunities have grown incredibly. So I appreciate everything that you and your team have done to use that to the benefit of the residents of Williamsburg, James City County, and York County. And one of the things you mentioned early on, and I know it's just one of 100 different programs that you offer, but that summer reading program is fantastic. And one of my favorite parts of it is that it's not just youth coming in to interact with the scary adults. You have the teenage volunteers in there who are much more approachable for the younger children. And with the teenagers getting a sense of volunteerism, of helping to mentor the younger people, and I would bet that almost every one of those teenagers who volunteers there started out as an early participant in that program and then is paying back to the next generation what somebody did for them. I just think it's a terrific model. Of course, everything you do is great. We'll be happy to see what we can do on the funding side and whether Mr. Trivett is a kind city manager or not. If not, we'll see what we can do to overcome that.
You know, the real secret there is that I'm actually the city's representative to the library board, so.
The stacked deck. And then the other thing that's impressive, the number of responses that you had to the survey.
It's big.
Not just what they said, but the number of people who participated is incredible. And I think what's most informative is the slide with the bars showing what are the typical other activities that you combine with a visit to the library. That's extremely helpful, and I think another indicator of how important and crucial the library is to a dynamic and vital downtown. We talk about doing a lot, anything we can to improve downtown vibrancy, and right here in the middle of town we have something that's a really important element of that. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
This takes us to our fourth background presentation, which is the Virginia Main Street Program by the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development. Ms. DeWitt, I believe you're kicking this off.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. We're here today, Rebecca Rowe, the Community Development Manager with the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, is here to give a presentation about the Virginia Main Street Program. Prior to Rebecca starting, I just wanted to remind us how we got to this point today. And last year, we had a downtown vibrancy plan, and part of that plan was talking about a way to engage the property owners and the businesses in the vibrancy of the city, because that's critical. Government certainly plays a role, but having downtown businesses and property owners participate and have input is also important to the success. And a downtown business association was mentioned as a way to get there. So the Main Street program, Rebecca will go over all the points, but part of it is that grassroots ownership by the property owners and the businesses and creation of the business association to move forward. So the timeline was in October. This past October, the EDA presented its ideas about downtown vibrancy implementation to you, and one of those was following this Main Street model of a downtown business association. At that point, council asked for a briefing about that program, and now we're here today with Rebecca giving us that briefing.
Welcome, Ms. Rowe.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Council and Mr. Mayor. My apologies for missing last month's meeting. Although I was really happy to be here today and hear about all of the investments that the city is making in the quality of life of its citizens with some of these other programs, the care team, the libraries, and the parks department. So I'll preface this by saying this presentation is kind of condensed down from a 45-minute to hour-long What is Main Street presentation. I think I've gotten through this in 20 minutes before, and I will do my best to hit the most salient points for you today. So the Main Street program was started by the National Trust for Historic Preservation approximately 40 years ago to combat disinvestment in our historic commercial districts, as Main Street districts went from being where people needed to be 100 or so years ago to now, 40 years ago, no one was in our downtown districts anymore, and now we've kind of come full circle back in 2018, 2019 to Main Street districts being a place that people want to be. So at its most basic, Main Street is considered economic development through historic preservation. Although as we get further into the 21st century practice of Main Street, we have also started saying that this is economic development through unique place-based assets. So it looks a little different in every community. And I think Michele referenced it earlier that one of the things that differentiates a Main Street approach is that this is a grassroots revitalization strategy. So as opposed to this being a function of the municipal government or the chamber where decisions kind of happen top down, with Main Street we really have a very strong emphasis on community engagement and stakeholder engagement so that the work plan is kind of coming from the ground up. So the outcomes of a Main Street effort, we are looking for sustainable development. Our downtown districts didn't experience decline overnight, and so they don't experience a resurgence overnight either. We're looking at entrepreneurship, so we're not necessarily trying to bring Starbucks to your district. We're trying to find maybe those people who are roasting coffee right now in their garage somewhere in the city, and we want to help them into a storefront. Community pride obviously is always a great benefit of a Main Street program. Public-private partnerships, I think we're all aware very few things happen without those. A renewed vibrancy in the commercial district, a regional allure, so Williamsburg already has that more than some places around the state, but we really want people traveling into Williamsburg for additional reasons, and then creating that strong sense of place. Again, I think Williamsburg is well on its way to a number of these things. So in Virginia, the Main Street program was adopted in 1985. We currently have 28 designated communities and approximately 90 commercial district affiliates around the state. And last year we introduced the Virginia Downtowns tier, which is in between commercial district affiliates and designated communities. Let me jump back to that really quickly. So designated communities, we have so few of those around the state because we only designate communities about every 2 to 4 years, depending on our resources. And this is a competitive process that these communities go through versus commercial district affiliates that is essentially a non-competitive one-page application letting us know what you want to get out of a Main Street program and then how you want to work with Virginia Main Street. Until recently, this was really just a box that was checked on CDBG applications. But in the last couple of years, there's now a small grant program that goes with this and with this level of affiliate community, and we have been working very hard in the Community Revitalization Office to include the commercial district affiliates in all of our trainings and to have a presence in those communities more often. So there are 4 points of the Main Street program: organization, design, economic vitality, and promotion. And organization really provides the community and with that sense of ownership of their Main Street program. Design is to establish the sense of place so that each place is uniquely its own locality. Economic vitality, of course, is a sense of vitality downtown, that there are stores open late into the evening, and then with promotion, creating a sense of activity in the district as well. So until recently, the Main Street approach was the 4-point approach. And about 6 or 7 years ago, Main Street, on the national level, took a look at the program to see how it was operating on the local levels and determined that a number of communities had great facade grant programs or sign grant programs, and they had festivals, but they didn't really get to the organization or the economic vitality side of what Main Street was supposed to be. So recently they updated their program a little bit to now be known as the Main Street approach, and it starts with a community vision, community engagement, and a market understanding, and then we use that to develop transformation strategies to really guide the unique work of each community and each organization across those 4 points, and then determine what the qualitative and quantitative outcomes are that we're looking for as a result of this program in each community. And then we use this transformation strategy to develop appropriate work plans as well. So some sample transformation strategies might be agriculture, arts, college town, something you all are fairly familiar with here, but really looking at the market data and what that community wants to develop these strategies. So for instance, if we had a college town transformation strategy in a community, that might work across the 4 points by the design committee potentially looking at walking and biking paths around the community, especially to and from the campus to the commercial district. Possibly a student faculty advisory group, or maybe you have a student represented on the board. Back to school events or parents' weekend as far as the promotions activities, and then the Economic Vitality Committee might do some student intercept surveys to make sure that we're meeting their needs. So in Lexington specifically, they have adopted 3 transformation strategies. Their first vision is that Lexington is bustling with people living downtown. Lexington is a hub of innovation, art, and technology, and Lexington is a destination for days-long eventers. So essentially, they want a downtown that is responsive to the people who are living downtown, but also to create opportunities for additional downtown housing. They want to be a center of innovation and arts, and they want to be a tourist destination. Now, one of the important things to note about these posters that actually Lexington Main Street takes around to a number of events with them throughout the year is at the bottom it says, "What do you think? Tell us how you think we can make this happen." So they are always looking for that community engagement piece. And then how this ends up in their work plan is they've created an upstairs and underground walking tour of downtown Lexington to highlight both the existing housing opportunities downtown as well as potential housing opportunities downtown. And this has become a really fun event there every year. They received some grant funding from DHCD to establish the Lexington Collaboratory, and I always strongly encourage people to follow the Collaboratory on Facebook. They have events happening every week, sometimes every night of the week, and it's a real economic generator for the people who are using the Collaboratory as well as the organization itself. They do some really fun things. And then their destination retail program, they put together a training program for their merchants and really created a cohort where there had not been a merchants association before. Now all of the merchants are really thinking along the same lines and not just thinking about how to make their business attractive, but how to make the district attractive. So when we're thinking in terms of design, we're not going to talk about every word on the slide, but we're going to talk about a couple of examples around the state. So in Ashland, they have a transformation strategy. So one way that they have expressed that is they have these bicycle gardens around town, just getting a hold of bikes that don't work anymore, painting them vibrant colors, putting flowers on the front, and putting the open signs on them. So it's a great visual in that district. In Culpeper, a number of years ago, one of the buildings downtown had to be demolished as a result of the earthquake. And rather than leaving that as a vacant space waiting for a new building, they got a long-term, worked with the municipality, they worked with the property owner to get a long-term lease on that site, and they got some grant funding to create this park. But a number of times around the state, we'll see really great pocket parks with nothing going on. And what they did to combat that is they did a series of community engagement activities to ask, what do you want to see happen here in the park? So now there's yoga in the park in the mornings and at lunch, and at the back you can see kind of a blank concrete wall, and they show movies there in the evening, just as a couple of examples. So under economic vitality, some examples again around the state. Downtown Wytheville, Inc. is contracted by their municipality to be kind of that first line of economic development incentives. So while this is not a particularly pretty part of their website, this is an example of them being very involved in the economic development aspects of their community, and they've pulled all of their incentives together in one place. In Gloucester, they participated in the community business launch. I think they did about 3 or 4 rounds of the actual competition, and now Gloucester has moved on to the 2.0 community business launch in their community. So rather than looking to create or bring in new businesses, they are now looking to grow and sustain the businesses that are in that district. Extended hours campaign. So you'll look down the street here in Stanton, and where a number of these banners are located, this lets you know that these businesses are open until 7 o'clock in the evening. So when it's 6 o'clock and I am just pulling into a town and I don't know what I should be doing, if I look down the street, I can see right away who all is open right now. And I think in a number of communities that is an issue with businesses being open after 5 o'clock. So on the promotions side, promotions can be anything from events to branding. In St. Paul, Virginia, they have really taken to recreation tourism as one of their strategies and their identity as a river town. So they do Clinch River Days every summer. Some branding that we've seen with different communities. Marion now bills itself as America's coolest hometown. Bristol is Believe in Bristol. And in Culpeper, they actually did this branding package about 10 years ago, but it still is a great visual representation of some of the things that you can do when you visit Culpeper. Now, on the organization side, we're talking about the really fun stuff like finances and volunteer hours, but, you know, we're really talking about building partnerships between the organization, the stakeholders, the businesses, the building owners, to really make sure, again, that this is a program that's responsive to the community, by and for the community. So in Stanton, they had started out as monthly, and now I believe they're quarterly merchant roundtables in the evening. It's a fairly informal program that they do, no real set agenda, maybe a couple announcements at the beginning, and then they just have conversation with the merchants, and through that kind of listening, they have been able to create cooperative marketing campaigns and do some other initiatives from the organization that are responsive to the needs of the businesses. So in Virginia, generally speaking, we have the Main Street Board of Directors that oversees an executive director, hopefully maybe some support staff, and then we have the 4 committees that work off of that. So our contacts, we have the National Main Street Center. In a couple of weeks, we'll all be out in Seattle for the national conference. Virginia Main Street is at dhcd.virginia.gov, and we have a number of trainings coming up this year. Our state conference is in Lynchburg in July, called Downtown Intersections. Available for any questions about Virginia Main Street.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to my colleagues for questions, comments.
Where to start? Thank you for the presentation. A lot of good information in there. On your first slide, you talk about thinking, cities were a place where people needed to be versus now what we're trying to create is where they want to be. And that is so true for Williamsburg. Is I think we have lost a lot of our identity, over the last 60 years. I mean, we've grown as, kind of a historic destination, and lots of visitors came to experience that, and we hope more come. But we've lost kind of what is Williamsburg to the residents, and I think part of what I hear here is trying to create that, what is unique about Williamsburg, more from a local perspective, and offering that, and I think the value of that is it'll bring, hopefully, some more visitors to town and bring more people to the downtown area. So I think this is a great initiative. What's the next step?
Well, currently, Williamsburg is not a commercial district affiliate, so I would encourage you to continue having conversations, maybe think about becoming a commercial district affiliate. That would take a resolution at the municipal level and then filling out that application that is not a difficult application at all. It's really just an opportunity for the community to be reflective on what they've been working on so far and what they would want out of a Main Street program. And then, we can go from there with technical services from DHCD to the Williamsburg community and see what direction that takes us. Again, it's something that's very responsive to the community.
Thank you so much for presenting today, and I'm glad you're feeling much better. And essentially, there's, like the Vice Mayor said, there's a lot of information and great information that's thrown out here, and I just see a lot of possibilities, especially as we are moving forward and ahead with our envisioning exercise for our downtown vibrancy and ways we can improve on it. I guess in terms of just some of the ideas, one of the things I was impressed from the presentation that was supposed to be had last time was that it's just very structured. And I had made that remark to City Manager earlier this morning. It's impressive because it gives us a sense of structure and direction of what we need to do moving forward. I remember earlier when we were envisioning with the downtown vibrancy discussions, we had floated around ideas about a downtown business association, several steps, and we had several ideas floated around in terms of what we could do. But this program actually puts all of that in a very structured way. I think there are 3 tiers that are available that localities could follow step by step, and the illustrations again kind of tie in with the possibilities. It's great to see how community members really are empowered to kind of take on this initiative on their own. It's not very much a top-down approach. It's what I gather from your presentation, but it's very much within the folks in the community to be able to enact what they want to see in their own downtown neighborhoods. I didn't have any questions. Actually, I do have one. I apologize. I take that back. Can you elaborate a little bit more of how the Chamber has played roles into developing with the Main Street? I recall, and I'm sorry I don't have a 100% clear thought on this from last time. There is a place for the Chamber to get involved along with the rest of the downtown businesses, but Could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. I think that the localities where we see the Main Street program being the most successful is where there is a very strong partnership between those collaborative organizations. So, and that would be the chamber, the municipality, a number of entities within the municipality. I think the library and the Parks Department that we heard today are two great partners for Main Street programs. So I think when the chamber and the Main Street program can see each other as collaborators and support the work that one another is doing is where we see the most success.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you also for the presentation. And since I come from the Shenandoah Valley, I was interested to see all of the Main Street communities right down Interstate 81. And having been to Harrisonburg and Stanton and Lexington within the past couple years, I can really see the difference that has occurred there. And I assume a lot of it is because of the Main Street program. So it makes it easier for me to sort of visualize. And I think it's important, too, to take advantage of the assets that each community has and then sort of flush them out to what makes the most sense. And in fact, in the slide that you showed where you had all of the communities listed, you also said that in 2018, Virginia Downtowns was introduced. Could you elaborate a little bit on what that program is?
The Virginia Downtowns tier is between commercial district affiliate and designated community. And really, it's a little bit by invitation only. Currently, we only have one Virginia Downtowns community, and that is Cape Charles. And we look for commercial district affiliates that are high performing and that are identified as a community that with 18 months to 24 months of really targeted technical services and potentially some grants could really take their organization and their community to the next level. For some organizations, that might mean getting ready for the next designation round. Other communities might determine during that process that that designation isn't right for them and that they want to stay at that commercial district affiliate or Virginia Downtowns level, but we're still able to really help with the sustainability of the organization with those services over that time.
Thank you. And then the example you showed for Lexington where they had like 3 visions, is it standard to have 3, or I guess my thought would be it'd be more like 1, but.
National Main Street recommends no more than 3, and that 2 is probably the right number for most communities because you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket necessarily.
All right, thank you.
Can you talk about some of the kickoff events to sort of get the community engagement? What's been successful?
Well, I mean, again, that really depends on the community, and each event will depend on what you're trying to accomplish with that event. So if we want something where we are just working with merchants or very specific stakeholders, that could, be a much smaller group, something in the evening with networking opportunities, maybe some presentations from other Main Street communities. I think that is very effective, often more so than just state staff talking about the work that we do, is hearing from other localities around the state that have been very successful. And then if the goal of that event was really to reach out to the community at large, that event might look very different, maybe at a library with a number of opportunities around the room for people to respond to different kind of questions about the community and thinking in terms of the future of the district.
Thank you.
Okay. Just a couple more, if I may. Going back to Ms. Ramsey's question about Lexington and their visioning process and the work plan. It's interesting to me that the 3 different banners or signs that they had were phrased Lexington is instead of Lexington will become. So are they trying to establish what their identity already is, or are they trying to vision for an identity that they want to achieve or accomplish with effort in the future?
I think Lexington was very thoughtful in going with a kind of a current tense versus a future tense. I'm sorry, present tense versus future tense. I need to spend more time at the library. because they did want to convey that Lexington is already those things now, but that they are working on building up all of those processes and amenities for the community, as well as more effective promotion of each of them.
And is it a normal process for a community to become a commercial district affiliate first and then evolve into a designated community? Do some go directly to designated community, and now that you've got this middle third tier, does that?
I think that in the past there have been communities that have gone from not having any official affiliation with Virginia Main Street to being designated. But I think that that is mostly a function of the fact that, again, until the last 2 or 3 years, commercial district affiliate didn't really mean much. It was just a checkbox on a CDBG application. And it's really over the last 3 to 4 years that we've identified that as an issue, and we've worked to build up that program and have more outreach to those communities. So I do think that the right track is to become a commercial district affiliate first. Then again, that opens up the potential for some small grants. It just increases the affiliation with Department of Community Development. And, really, it's a little hard for me to answer that question because there's almost none of our resources except some of those grants that are, wholly tied to those designations or affiliations, because anyone in the state of Virginia can come to our trainings, and any community around the state that calls the Community Revitalization Office in to work with them on community revitalization, we utilize the Main Street approach. But I think the affiliation is important to start to be involved with the network of Virginia Main Street communities around the state.
And early on, you used the term disinvestment in downtown, and I don't think we have that situation here. Our downtown has evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, if you go back 40 years, it's a lot different than it was today, or 70 years. But even in the last 10, it's continued to change. But if there hasn't been real disinvestment, do you still see the Main Street program applying here as we're trying to make it even better than it is?
Absolutely. Michele and I spoke when she took me on a tour, and I do think that Williamsburg's downtown and Williamsburg's evolution of that commercial district has been very different from the rest of the state and really the rest of the country. In some ways, Williamsburg is the first Main Street, and then also when Colonial Williamsburg was kind of getting up and running, that was right about the time that a lot of historic commercial districts around the country started to see the disinvestment in their downtowns. I do think that your district is a bit of a different animal, but I also think that there is benefit here to the stakeholders and to the community of having a Main Street program to stay ahead of some of those issues that might be coming.
And is there any reason why you would ever advise a community not to pursue the commercial district affiliate?
I can't think of any reason not to pursue the commercial district affiliate status. There might be communities that I would suggest are not ready or maybe are not right long-term to be a designated community. But the affiliate status doesn't really carry any restrictions with it. There's nothing that you have to do to maintain that status, and it does open you up to the network and some grant funds, as well as the technical services from staff.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Any other questions?
Sir.
Michelle's eager to get to the podium, I see.
No, and Rebecca, it's a question for you. I think I pressured Rebecca to keep it short, and so the first 3 pillars were nice pictures and very exciting, but that last category of organization, if I could just have Rebecca talk a little bit about that. The Main Street model does require a staff person, it's not volunteer-led, so I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that.
Yeah, so actually to be a designated community, there is a requirement of a paid executive director or program manager. If you're a community under 5,000 people, that can be a part-time staff member. If you are over 5,000 people, which you are, we would be looking at a full-time staff member. And, not only do we encourage full-time paid staff, we can show you several years of salary surveys from our communities as well as communities around the country, and I can tell you very specifically what the salary range to get a true professional into this position is as well. In Virginia, the model is that there is a standalone 501c3. So again, that Main Street Board of Directors and then paid staff, and the Board of Directors is both a governing board and a working board. And having that paid staff member whose 100% focus is on the economic vitality of the downtown district really is one of the cornerstones of the program. And I can't think of anywhere that has made it work without having that person in place. I'm not sure if that answered enough of the question.
But so if there was one of these formed, it would be of who would form that entity? Would it be the merchants downstairs, in that downtown area, form an association, and then from that association form a 501c?
We see it coming from different areas, again, depending on the community. In some communities, there's already a merchants association up and running, maybe a historical society or an arts association. And so by starting with a lot of different stakeholder and community engagement events, one of the things that we would hope to achieve would be determining who are the spark plugs here in the community, who wants to be involved, who wants to be on the steering committee that starts to build up an organization, and what would the focus look like here. So, really that startup phase for a Main Street effort, going from kind of no organization in place to having an organization in place could be a 2 to 3 year process before we get to an organization established and having the funding that can support a full-time staff member. So it doesn't happen immediately.
And that's one of the examples, what you were saying earlier about how the chamber and the localities working together could really be maybe a necessary benefit, because there's just that level of collaboration. Now, has there ever been any, I guess it hasn't worked at this point because it's not there, but discussions of the chamber taking the role of developing, this downtown organization? Because I would assume that some of them would have broached that topic because they're an association for all businesses. Why not just put an umbrella under as a downtown focus?
So we have seen chambers successfully incubate a Main Street program, but it's really works best when that Main Street program spins off from the chamber and is its own entity.
Right.
Because with a chamber, you're going to have Walmart and McDonald's and a number of other businesses as members. And another thing to know is that Main Street is not a membership-based organization. Even if, as a 501c3, they do fundraising through sponsorships or investors, it's not a membership organization. They serve every stakeholder in their district versus a chamber that is a membership-based organization and only serves its members.
Right.
And, chambers are just as invested in bringing that Walmart or McDonald's in as they might be with the downtown district, and we really find that having that very specific downtown focus is essential.
And that's not to say that we ever entertained that discussion. I'm just personally curious because I'm sure someone may have thought of that before, saying, why couldn't we just, envelop this and, get another full-time position or something? So it was.
We have had that conversation around the state.
I'm sure it was very fun.
Anything else? Thank you very much, Ms. Rowe.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Trivett, I don't know if you want to wrap this up, but we have a staff recommendation that we need to address. Can we do that by consent, or do we need to vote on something on Thursday?
We would prefer you not to vote, I think, but just give us consent that this is something you're interested in, and ask the EDA to further pursue it. I think what I'm hoping that you saw in today's presentation, and I think she did an excellent job of illustrating this, is as we have talked about vibrancy over the last years, everybody sort of conjures up an image of what vibrancy means to them, right? All of us have done that. Hopefully, in the slides that she showed of example Main Street community programs from all over the state, you identified with at least one of them as something that you thought sort of embodies vibrancy that would work really well in Williamsburg. And I think one of the things that Michele and I like about the Main Street program is not just the access to professional experts in the field of Main Street development, but also that concept that every time we talk about vibrancy, we end up discussing programs that the city government traditionally is not organized to devote itself to. Could we do them? Yes. Would we like to do them? Absolutely. Do we have the time to do them as a central focus, as she said? No. And that's where a Main Street program comes in, because it's dedicated to that one purpose, and there's a whole legion of volunteers supporting that mission to create those events, to work those programs, to develop the fundraisers that support the product. And that's really the secret to success all over the state. So what we'd like you to do is just sort of by consensus opinion, ask Michele to continue this project with the EDA, asking them to further look into affiliate status, membership, I think, maybe even the new middle tier, which was new to me, with the eventual
that was
goal.
invitation only, though.
With the idea of looking at the full designation at some point in the future.
So I think, for me, it is appropriate for the EDA to kind of take this on to help get this off the ground, to create, and help create that entity downtown that will take on much of this responsibility.
And I think beyond that, if this is a grassroots effort, if this is the businesses and the stakeholders in the downtown coming together to do it, they have to be willing to take this on and interested in pursuing it. So I think what we'd be asking the EDA to do is to explore that, to sort of take the temperature of the downtown community and see if there's that energy within that group and the willingness to take it on.
And I think, I think the EDA staff has roles to play, but I don't know how much they should play in,
Well, I think
being the incubus to this. And
I think that's the word. She said that in answer to Mr. Zhang's question, that chambers sometimes incubate these things. And I think that's the role that we're asking the EDA to step into, is to incubate the effort to the point that it's standalone.
I concur, and I just wanted to quickly point that, as Ms. Rowe was giving the presentation, there were tons of other GIOs I think that could fall really within this, because as the mayor has said, this is really truly a grassroots effort. You have a downtown business association. There's the idea to engage with the history of the city, with the downtown. We have a very complicated past, obviously talking about colonial Williamsburg, the founding of our country, but also at certain times there were racial disparities, and that's very falls within Virginia's own history as well. There's an opportunity for storytelling that could model in with marketing efforts that CW has been doing already, and now the city has the opportunity to talk about its past as well. But that's not to say that that's all mandatory, but these are all different GIOs that come together. We had spoken about city volunteerism. Obviously that award for the city will be citywide, but it helped to have a downtown business association to also participate in that effort in a more organized way. So if this truly has a grassroots appeal and interest to it, perhaps some of our other GIOs may be addressed as well.
On board?
On board.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. City Council communications. Do we have any reports from liaison assignments?
Sure. So as you all know, I serve on the Tourism Council and had the pleasure, I think is what they call it, to serve as the chair of the search committee, which we started in November. The committee has met several times. We've brought back several candidates and made a recommendation to the Tourism Council, the full body. They had the opportunity to meet with a few candidates, and we have made an offer to a candidate. So we should have somebody in place by mid-April. It's still confidential. That person still has to submit let their current employer know. But I think
They accept it.
Today we fine-tuned some things. I think we've come to an agreement. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. And so hopefully in the next couple of days we'll have a formal announcement for you.
And with the Business Council, we're continuing reorganization efforts, but also the memberships are open. So for folks who are interested, please renew or apply for membership.
Do you have forms available today?
It's online.
Okay.
It's the beauty of today.
And I will just say that we have an EDA meeting on Wednesday, and the EDA packet information is available online on the city's website.
Okay. This takes us to schedule of meetings. Mr. Trivett, anything you'd like to highlight? Council has a couple of extra meetings this month.
Right, so we have the city council meeting on the 14th, and then a joint meeting with the school board and the Board of Supervisors for James City County on the 15th. On the 18th, we will have our annual budget work session for outside agencies to make presentations, followed by March 27th, the Planning Commission work session, and then we're back here on April the 8th for the City Council work session.
And that March 18th work session on the budget is at 4 o'clock
That's right.
in this building.
Here
Is
in
it in this
room.
chamber?
It is, yes.
Okay. Okay, this takes us to open forum. I still have my speaker's card. Mr. Snyder, if you'd like to come forward, if you could offer your name and address, although we have it on the card, but just so the audience knows, and if you could keep your remarks to 5 minutes or less, we'd appreciate that.
I certainly can. Thank you. My name is Roy Snyder. I am a James City County resident. I'm here today because, to my knowledge, I'm known as the oldest, longest using resident of Waller Mill Lake that still exists. I wanted to speak to you briefly about the study that was done for the park. It's an excellent study, and it pleases me to see that it is being taken seriously, with parts of it being addressed by staff now to begin to implement. There's two threads, though, that I see that I don't see tied together very well. One of the four major areas of the study has to do with tourism. The translation I see in the study and have heard in terms of implementation is tourism as it relates to physical plants and land. What's omitted, in my view, is an opportunity to use water as a vehicle for tourism. You own a wonderful lake, a beautiful reservoir. It has the potential for water races of all kinds to take place on it, possibly some that could become national events, and one of my dreams is an international event. But it's the water, not the land, nor a building that I'm talking about. And I see an absence of addressing your asset in the study, and therefore in terms of action implementation. I would hope that as we move forward, the use of Waller Mill Lake becomes an important asset that you see as a tourism vehicle. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. We very much appreciate that. Would anybody else like to address council? Mr. Shelley? Welcome, Mr. Shelley.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I am Gary Shelley. I live at 205 Indian Springs Road. I'm speaking today directly to each of the five of you on council. We look to you to guide our city in a direction that is most beneficial to all of our citizens, and not in a direction that unjustifiably favors one group of citizens over another, ultimately resulting in a community that falls far short of its potential. I understand well the difficulties that decision makers such as you must contend with. I have much admiration and respect for you who are entrusted with responsibilities that are inherent in serving on city council, and with the city administrators who work with you. You must not only contend with current issues, but must to the best of your abilities plan for the future, which without a crystal ball is not an easy task. In addition, you must also clean up mistakes made by previous councils and the consequences from those mistakes that affect our city today. I look to this council with optimism as you do your best to address current critical issues, issues such as vibrancy, the redevelopment of our shopping center, connecting our midtown-downtown corridor, the budget, and density. Fortunately for us, Williamsburg is blessed to have an incredible asset, the college and its students, who can play a critical role in dealing with each of these issues. I realize that running the city is a difficult task, but I also realize that these aforementioned issues did not arise overnight. The person who said that our previous councils were asleep at the wheel was correct. Hopefully, this council will recognize the enormous potential of welcoming and integrating students into our community. Previous councils erred badly in dealing with town-gown tensions. And let there be no mistake about it, town-gown tensions exist today very much as they existed then. The 110 Harrison Avenue issue was but one manifestation. The voting rights travesty in 2004, shortly before a city council election, was an even greater manifestation. It was one of the saddest episodes in all of Williamsburg's storied history. Mr. Trivet, you're, I think, probably the only one here who is here today who was not in town at that time, so you may or may not be aware of it. Overnight, students lost their right to register and vote in Williamsburg, in spite of the considerable contributions they bring to this town. The disenfranchisement was a clear message to students that they are not welcome as citizens and they are not welcome as neighbors. Williamsburg is hardly the first place in America that voter suppression has taken place. Voter suppression is still very much in the news, but nowhere in America was voter suppression more effective and complete than in this town. A sad and shameful commentary on who we are. Overnight, every student who attempted to register and vote was denied. 100%, every one. Williamsburg was the only city in the country where absolutely no student was allowed to register and vote locally. Understandably, students were angry and resentful. Eventually, an alarmed State Board of Elections, with whom I met several times, and the Virginia General Assembly stepped in and guaranteed William and Mary students their right to vote and participate in the local governing process, thus codifying students as worthy and equal citizens. Perhaps from this very ugly episode, we can still learn much about who we are today. I will have more to say about this in future meetings. As always, my presentations will be well-researched and documented, and I invite anyone who would like to comment to speak in open forum or contact me directly. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shelley. Mr. Hillard, did you want to?
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Ted Hiller. I live in James City County in Windsor Mead. I'm here to speak about the Regional Library Board. However, the first talk we heard about was only 69% of the children had their dental care taken care of. So from a dental standpoint, that should be better. But in regard to the Williamsburg Regional Library, I was interested in the mayor talking about the two topics tied together. I would tie all four topics together, the library being involved with all the other three. If you went out on a man and a woman on the street and talked to them about their library, many would say, maybe most would say, this is the best library I've been involved with. The other thing is that Betsy did not mention the fact that we were voted the second best library in the United States, Pueblo, Colorado being first. And when John Mormon was the chairman, he always said, Williamsburg Library is the best library in the state. So I'm very positive and excited about being involved with the library and hope to do something to make this a 21st century library. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hiller. Would anybody else like to address council this afternoon? Seeing no one, I'll close the open forum. I believe we have an item for closed session today.
We do. I move to go into closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussing one personnel matter per subparagraph 1 concerning appointments to boards and commissions.
Second.
Ms. Bertram?
Mr. Maslin?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Freiling?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Mr. Zhang?
Aye.
Council will take a very brief recess and reconvene in closed session.